We certainly need your prayers tonight. You know that I'm just about up the last hill, looks like, but it's been a pleasure to feel God in my life as I climb the last hill. As far as I know, it's last hill. Never know, man. Reach my age, he'll have to go 100 and not know it. But I'm not figuring on that. That's up to God. In the book of Job, we find Job said, if a man die, shall he live again? And he went on to say, man that's born of woman is a few days and full of trouble, cometh forth like a flower, and he's cut down. He fleeth also as a shadow, and continueth not. Now, I'll tell you what kind of a man Job was, because I'm going to leave him pretty quick. Job was a man that lost his children. He lost his wealth. But he said, if God slay me, I'll trust him. Now, that's putting trust in God. I believe God accepted that. I do. I believe Job's at rest. I believe a lot of them old apostles and old men of God of old, they've gone to rest and their troubles are over. But I tell you what, from the looks of what we're facing, if it's not over pretty soon, we're going to suffer. But anyway, I think it'll be over pretty soon. I don't think God's going to let it stand too long whenever the churches, good churches, get so that a bunch of them gets without a pastor and they can't help it. Anyway, I'd like to take you, Job said, if a man die, shall he live again? I remember a reading of a couple of men that they lived after they died. I remember Moses. He died and he was buried in the valley of Moab. God buried him. The angels took care of his funeral. Brother, that must have been the most beautiful funeral that was ever held. And so then we notice moving on over to the time that Jesus came into the world, he went up to the mountain of Transfiguration, and there his clothes became, brother, just say, clear white, and his face shined like the sun. I was shining in it. And we notice there appeared two men, Moses and Elias, appeared there, and they was talking to Jesus about what he would go through at Jerusalem. And there, if you please, I remember Peter, my friend, as he raised his head, and he knowed Moses. He said, Lord, it's good for us to be here. Let us make 3 tabernacles, Lord, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elias. By the way, Elias was caught up to heaven, brother, in a whirlwind. And so you can't tell me that there's not life after death, because those two men visited Jesus on the hill of Transfiguration, and the devil, after that, it was God's will that Jesus suffer some things, and so God permitted the devil, after Jesus had went up to a certain mountain, and there he fasted 40 days and nights. He done without something to eat, and the devil, after the 40 days was up, he came to him and said, if you're the Son of God, I command the stone to be made bread. But Jesus said, thank God, he said, man, I shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. There is a God, my friend, that's bigger than we realize. He's sitting upon, my friend, a throne of majesty. And so it's so big that John, the Revelator, when he saw it, I'll get back to Jesus in a little, but when John saw the great throne of God, he said, and he that sat upon it, from whose face the heaven and the earth fled away. Brother, God can just look at anything and speak it out of existence or into existence. God is real. I know that because he's in my life. I noticed Jesus, when the devil came to him, the devil knew if he could stop Jesus, he would stop the plan that God had set up. And so, my friend, as he came to Jesus, and there, as I said, I come ask the Lord to command the stone to be made bread. But the Lord rebuked him, and the devil took Jesus. After this, he took him down on a pinnacle of the temple. That's way up high. You know them sharp things that sticks up from a church, a big church that goes away up in the air. The devil was given power to take Jesus up there and tell him, now if you're the Son of God, jump down because it is written. Listen, the devil, he knows Scripture, but that booger, he can't down you if you'll trust God with all your heart. If you get in trouble, call on Jesus, and he'll deliver you. And so he said, if you're the Son of God, cast yourself down, for it is written, he has give his angels charge concerning you, that they'll bear you up at any time, lest thou dash thy foot against a stone. Jesus said, it is written, thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God. And the devil took him back on the mountain. God permitted this, that Jesus might suffer, and that he might be the captain of our salvation, that when we get in trouble, my friend, that Jesus knowed what it was. Brother, let me tell you one thing. He's been through it all. He's been to the cross. He suffered on every hand. Jesus, there he was taken to a high mountain, and the devil, within a moment's time, the devil showed him all the kingdoms of the world, and showed him the glory of them, and said, these I'll give you if you fall down and worship me. Jesus said it is written, thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve. Can you imagine God sitting on the throne, one that's able to speak, brother, listen, a whole nation in or out of existence, and his son said, it is written that thou shalt, my friend, worship the Lord thy God, and him only. I imagine God must have said something. He's bound to have said something. I believe that God said, that's my son. Oh, listen, my friend, I move along and I follow Jesus as he went down. And I remember as I read about him in the New Testament, I read that when it ended, the biggest part of his sayings to the people on how to live right, he went down to a city, my friend, here, that was Capernaum, and he went into that city, and so Jesus, listen, while he was in there, there was a certain man, brother, was a man that was over 100 soldiers in the Roman Empire. He heard about this man, and he said, my friend, to some of his people, he said, go and get him and bring him down here so he can heal my servant. I is sick. He had a servant that he loved very well. He had a servant, this man that he was over, the Bible said, from 60 to 100 men. He was over in the Roman Empire. And so he heard about Jesus doing all these miracles. He was opening the eyes of the blind, raising the dead, and all those things. And so he had built a synagogue for the Jews. He had a fear of God about him. And so he called some of the Jewish leaders, my friend, to him that knowed him. And he said, go up there. My servant here is about to die. Go and get Jesus. Tell him I want him to come and heal my servant. They went up there. He had got the leaders of the church of Israel there. He had got them to go. And when they got up to where Jesus was, there they moved real quickly. They said, Jesus, this man is worthy for you to come and heal his servant because he's built us a synagogue and he fears the Lord. Jesus turned around and he followed them and he went down toward where that man lived, and there his servant that he loved was just about dead. He was going to die if he didn't get help real quick. But there, my friend, Jesus got real close to the house, and this man that trusted Jesus, that believed in God, he was a Gentile, my friend, and he did this. And so, my friend, he sent to Jesus when Jesus got real close to the house. He said, Master, there's no use for you to come in this house because we're not worthy. I'm a man that's over men. He said, I say to this one, go, and he goeth. I say to another, do this, and he doeth it. And he said, Master, I neither thought I myself I was worthy to come to you. And Jesus, he turned around on this, and he looked at the people, and he said, I have never I heard of such. Not even in Israel have I heard of such faith. Listen, and there, brother, whenever the ones that were sent to Jesus went back to the house where the servant was almost dead, they found him healed, completely, brother, in good shape. I'm persuaded that there wasn't anything wrong with him. And so, my friend, Jesus went on, and he went into another little city there. He was actually headed toward Jerusalem, but he went into another little city, and as he went into this city, he came to a gate where you went in and where you went out of the city. And there he saw a crowd of people that was carrying a dead man, my friend, carrying him out from the city. And there, if you please, my friend, this dead man was the only son of a poor widow woman. She was going along there, and she was weeping. Jesus looked at her. He said, don't worry. He said, my friend, he comforted her. Jesus walked over to what we call the casket. It's called a bier in the Bible. And they stopped because Jesus put his hand upon it. And when he done that, Jesus said, young man, I say unto thee, arise. And that man began to breathe again. And he got up from where he was laying. And he began to talk to him. And you imagine what that dear old widow woman, brother, what she done when Jesus turned him back to her. She went home happy. Had to. I believe she shouted some. I really do. And so time went on. And brother, yonder in prison, John the Baptist had told the ruler, it's not right for you to have your brother's wife. And he was put in prison, and he heard about these miracles that Jesus was doing. And so he called two of his disciples, and he said, go and ask Jesus, is he the one, or should we look for another? I'm persuaded he didn't doubt. He remembered the baptism, how brother, the bird there, how it sailed down and lit upon Jesus, my friend. He remembered that. I'm persuaded. But he was doing good some way. I said, you go and ask him. Is he the one? Or should we look for another? And he went there to Jesus. Those two disciples went to Jesus. And they said, John the Baptist has sent us unto you to ask you, are you the one, Jesus? Or should we look for another? And Jesus, he said, go your way and tell John. Thank God John was going to get the answer. Go your way and tell John what things you've seen and what you've heard. How the blind see, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, the poor have the gospel preached unto them, and blessed is he whosoever shall not be offended in me. Brother, there must have been a little bit of shouting going on when they returned to John, but it wasn't long till John lost his life. That woman that he married, this leader married, it was sin for him to marry her, and she caused John to be killed, caused his head to be cut off. But yonder in glory, thank God, back to Job again. If a man die, shall he live again? All the days, Job said, of my appointed time, I'll wait for my change to come. God shall call and I'll answer. He shall have a desire to the work of his hands. God, he said, I would you'd hide me in the grave until your wrath be past. Set an appointed time, God, and remember me. And I'm sure God done that. And so, my friend, people that die, that's not the last of them. Out here in the grave, we've got loved ones laying there. That is the remains. We've got what they lived in, but they're gone on. I preach the living part. Is with Christ in glory. And the Bible said that Jesus, when he comes, that God shall bring them with him. And he shall descend with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, and the trump of God, and the dead in Christ shall raise first. Then Paul said, we that's alive and remain shall not prevent them which are asleep. He said, for we shall be changed. He said, we shall go up with them to meet the Lord in the air. I'll not be afraid of a brother of height any longer. I'll lose my fear of all things because God won't let me suffer. God said, I'll wipe the tears from your eyes. And Jesus tells us, I've got to get a little bit over here in Revelation. Jesus said, blessed are they that do my commandments or his commandments. John was talking, and he said, blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have a right to the tree of life, and may enter in through the gates. into the city. For without the gates are dogs and sorcerers, and whosoever loveth and maketh a lie. I, Jesus, have sent mine angel, he said, to tell you these things in the churches. And so I'll not get to that. But anyway, I want to say, I wonder again how that Peter was able to raise his head and look upon Moses back at the Mount of Transfiguration. Raise his head and know Moses and Elias. Brother, it was because the Holy Ghost was in his life, made him able to know who they were. There won't be no strangers in heaven. Thank God, Paul said, then shall I know, even as also I am known. There won't be anybody that I don't know. If there's an angel up there that I haven't seen, I'll look at him and or her, whoever it is. I'm not to judge about that, but I'll look at them and I'll know what their name is. They'll know me, thank God. I believe that. If I'm wrong, I hope God will show me and I'll tell you. But I believe I'm right in that. Anyway, my friend, let's keep pushing on. It's just a little while until God will bring a halt to the way the nations of the world is living. This nation has got so wicked that, my friend, it scares me to think of what they're doing. Listen, but there's nothing I can do. But there's something God will do. He'll bring it to an end. And John looked and seen God sitting upon the throne, whose face the heavens and the earth fled away, and there was found no place for them. There ain't going to be no place found for this earth. It's going to pass away. My friend, that's up to God, what he does to all of it. But he's going to destroy it. But I'm glad for one thing. Though that God burned this earth up, which he's going to, I don't know when, though he burns this earth, though he destroys it with fire, he'll not let me be burnt. He'll not let the fire get me, because I'm trusting him. And I have a witness in my heart, in my life, that lets me know that when God hears me, I believe God hears me all the time, but he lets me know when I'm in his will praying. And boy, that's the best feeling I ever had in my life. Listen to you, I'm going to come to a close. I haven't done no great preaching. I've done long preaching, but it's not been that good. It's been all right. I mean, I'm not going to back up on it, but listen to me. Listen to me. We're going to be together one day, all of us, if we'll be faithful. We'll be caught up together. We'll go up together. You think of that. Dory, my beloved wife, and Marilyn, my beloved daughter, they're with the Lord. Their spirit is. Their living part is. They've been buried over here at Mechanicsburg, but they're not in there anymore. In fact, I'd like to say they wasn't even at their funeral. They wasn't even at their funeral. My time's getting close, no doubt. But I've got news for you. I'm not going to be to my funeral either. I'm not going to be there. I'll be left out and gone. Jesus will have me somewhere, wherever it's His will. He'll have me, because He won't leave me in the grave. And whoever preaches, if time still lasts, and I'm in the funeral home, whoever preaches my funeral, they can just say he was a little fellow, but he served God. That's all I want.